we have a target there in our climate action plan of 5.7 gigawatt hours of biomethane in our gas systems by 2030. So that's quite a big challenge. 5.7 gigawatt hours is about 10% of the natural gas that we currently consume every year in Ireland. So that will be produced using mainly grass silage and animal manures. It's going to help in terms of our energy security. This is where biomethane from agricultural produce that can contribute significantly to Ireland's energy independence.
Hello and welcome to the Beef Edge, the Teagasc Beef Podcast, for all your latest news, information and advice for Irish beef farmers. I'm Catherine Egan, and on this week's episode, I'm joined by Teagasc Energy and Rural Development Specialist Barry Caslin to discuss renewable options, farm diversification and the upcoming Renewable Energy and Farm Diversification event in Gurteen. Barry, you're very welcome. When it comes to energy and farm diversification, what are the areas for farmers to consider?
Yeah, I suppose it's a very broad area, isn't it? You're looking at renewable energy sources. It could be solar power, wind energy, biomass, bioenergy. Many farmers looking at getting wind turbines on their land at the moment, maybe hosting a wind turbine, maybe hosting solar panels on their land, or maybe putting small-scale solar on the roofs of their sheds, maybe to meet their own electricity consumption. There's many farmers maybe utilising biomass. Maybe they're buying in the biomass or using biomass produced on their own farms. That could be crop residues, or it could be, from forestry, pulpwood from forestry. It could be energy crops, or it could be using maybe waste that's produced on the farm. It could be using animal manures for anaerobic digesters to produce bioenergy or biomethane. And I suppose the area covers areas like energy efficiency, maybe upgrading equipment, maybe investing in energy efficient machinery or that can reduce your overall energy consumption and costs. You could be looking at building insulation and heating, improving the insulation of the farm buildings and maybe opting for maybe more energy efficient heating systems to make maybe savings or energy savings in the future. Many farmers on energy efficiency are looking at LED lighting, replacing traditional lighting with LED alternatives that can reduce energy usage and the maintenance costs. And then you're looking at diversification, as you mentioned there as well, maybe into new crops or maybe into new livestock, maybe high value crops, maybe growing speciality crops such as organic produce or herbs or medicinal plants. Many farmers are looking at agri-tourism and educational activities, maybe farm stays and tours, maybe educational workshops, maybe on the farm. The OnStar, maybe the stay on the farm and that kind of experience that can really attract visitors and provide an alternative revenue stream coming into the farm. Some places are offering what's called pick your own operations. They're allowing customers to pick their own fruits, their vegetables, their flowers, and that can create a unique farm experience and it can increase direct sales. You might be looking at maybe value-added products, maybe processing and packaging, like maybe cheeses, jams, processed meats, chutneys, and they can deliver, significant profitability, from taking your raw agricultural products, your milk or your meat, and adding value to them. And then you can have direct to consumer sales. You can establish direct sales channels such as farmers markets or online sales, and they can provide better margins than you're getting at the wholesale rate. And then, sustainable practices such as carbon farming and efficient water use and irrigation, crop rotation, soil health, and then the whole area of grants and subsidies like government programs that are exploring, subsidies to incentivize renewable energy projects and what type of policy is coming down the road that's encouraging farmers to adopt renewable energies and to be maybe more sustainable practices on the farms.
I suppose moving on from that, Barry, you've touched on it there, the Department of Agriculture, Food and Marine, they recently launched Ireland's National Biomethane Strategy. What potential do you see in this for farmers?
Yeah, the strategy was launched in the last 2 weeks, and that's I suppose it's going to allow for renewable energy generation. So biomethane production, we have a target there in our climate action plan of 5.7 gigawatt hours of biomethane in our gas systems by 2030. So that's quite a big challenge. 5.7 gigawatt hours is about 10% of the natural gas that we currently consume every year in Ireland. So that would be produced using mainly grass silage and animal manures. So it's going to help in terms of our energy security because all our gas is imported from. We have a certain amount of gas offshore in the Carib coast, but we are importing the vast majority of our fossil fuels, and we don't have a lot of gas offshore in Carib either. It's probably estimated at 8 to 10 years, and that resource will be finished. So we do have to look at energy security, and this is where biomethane from agricultural produce that can contribute significantly to Ireland's energy independence and reducing our reliance on imported fossil fuels. It can also help to decarbonize, our energy mix because as a renewable energy source, biomethane can play a very crucial role in meeting Ireland's climate targets by reducing greenhouse gas emissions that's associated with energy production. And it can also decarbonize the agricultural sector by reducing emissions from it. Then you have, agricultural benefits there, such as, waste management. You'll see agricultural residues such as animal manures, crop waste. They'll be used for biomethane production. So it won't only provide for sustainable waste management solutions, but it'll also reduce the environmental pollution as well, because you'll have better control on waste material and better utilization of it. It'll be a better, it's like a diversification opportunity for farmers as well, because it'll provide additional revenue stream for farmers. They'll be supplying grass silage into these digesters. And there's an opportunity. So there'll be a job creation opportunity there from a rural development perspective, with many, maybe running these plants. We need in the region of around 200 plants based on the strategy outline, which suggests in the region of 200 plus plants that would be around 40 gigawatt hours in capacity. So there'll be a lot of local investment, in terms of putting in the infrastructure, and that'll boost local economies. And you'll see a better environmental sustainability as a result, because you'll have emission reductions and you'll have better soil health, because the digestate, over 90% of what you put into a digester, whether that's food waste or whether it's grass silage or slurry, over 90% will come back out, and that's in the form of digestate, and that's a very valuable organic fertilizer that can enhance the soil health, and it reduces the need for chemical fertilizers. So we all know what the cost of chemical fertilizers. So there's a great opportunity of replacing those chemical fertilizers with an organic source, and it's very good for the circular economy as well. Because you have better resource efficiency, you're turning waste products into valuable energy resources. So that it's not just improving the resource efficiency, but it also contributes to more sustainable agricultural systems. And then you'll see better technological and innovation advancements in these areas over the coming years as well. The strategy can drive innovation in biogas technologies. You'll see improved efficiencies. You'll have cost effectiveness as well. And you'll see better scalability of biomethane production over the years. So while the strategy outlines an average of maybe 40 gigawatt hour plants, there's probably going to be even larger plants built in certain areas around the country. So it'll offer, I suppose, farmers the opportunity to collaborate with one another. You'll see researchers, energy companies, and you'll see better understanding of, knowledge sharing and technological development, and farmers getting involved in this new area of supplying, of generating our national energy requirements.
A lot of potential there, Barry, really across a variety of opportunities. There's been huge interest recently in relation to the number of grants that's available, particularly for solar panels under TAMS. What should farmers be considering?
Yeah, it's a massive area under the TAMS. You have the Solar Capital Investment Scheme. I suppose in terms of what they should be considering is, you're looking at your initial costs and your financial planning, because even though there's a very good grant aid of 60% towards the panels, and that's available for beef farmers as well to put on their own domestic dwelling houses. So it's not just the dairy farmers, the pig or the poultry, who are the obvious contenders there to be putting up solar PV panels for their business. But they can also get it for their house. You can't put the panels on your house when you're getting a TAMS grant, but you can put it on the sheds, or you can ground mount them maybe in the field at the back of your house. Or you'd have to put your garden, if you had a big enough garden around your house, you could ground mount them in the garden, but you'd have to put that on your BIS application and exclude it from payment purposes, but just to show that that is your land on your BIS application. But you asked there, what would you look at in terms of in terms of considering investing in it? Even though you're getting the grant, you still have to, look at the initial cost of purchasing the panels, because you will need a bridging loan probably to put up the panels first of all and buy them. You get your grant back afterwards, so you may have maybe 7-8 months to wait before you get your payment of your grant. So it's just to allow for that. And you look at, you calculate the return on the investment by, you're considering the longer term savings, the energy bills, the potential earnings from maybe selling excess power back to the grid. And you can sell excess power back to the grid, because inevitably there'll be certain times of the day, whether it's a dairy farmer or a beef farmer or pig or poultry, there'll be certain times of the day that you won't be able to use the electricity that you're generating for the business, and that you will have to export the excess back to the grid. So I suppose understanding the TAMS requirement, you can't put panels onto a shed where, for example, there's an internal agitation point. There's some of the things that want to be considering as well. And really, maximum, you shouldn't oversize the panels either. They should be just sized to meet the demand of either the business or the household, or the two of them together if they're both on the same MPRN, or the meter point reference number. You need to do an energy needs assessment on the farm. That's something that really needs to be considered, like what's your current energy use? And that's part of the TAMS application, that you have to look at your current kilowatt hours of usage. So really what they look for is the previous 12 months of bills, and in terms of kilowatt hours of electricity used. That'll determine the size of the system, and the system size that's going to be needed. Many farmers have approached me and said they want to put up a larger system. And what they will find is they won't be able to export back. So there's no point in oversizing the system over the export potential, because rural Ireland has a lot of poor transformer capacity. And that means that you're maybe working at 15 kilovolt amp transformers. And that means that you don't have that ability to get large amounts of electricity back onto the grid. So that's just something to consider. Don't oversize the system. Work within your existing curtailment or your existing transformer capacity in your area. If you're on three-phase supply, then it's a bit different. You will have more export capacity there, but most people on single phase are on 15 kilovolt amp transformers. Other areas as well, Catherine, will be maybe the site suitability, the location, and the orientation of the panels. The panels should ideally be facing south. There shouldn't be any shading or obstructions there. You have to check for maybe trees, buildings, other maybe obstructions that could maybe reduce the efficiency of the solar panels. You look for the quality of them, the durability of the panels. The panel quality is very important. It's something that you don't buy too often, so it's generally a one-off investment for most people, because panels will be there for maybe 25, 30 years. And there are different brands of them out there as well. You're also buying not just the panel, you're buying the inverters, and they're quite important. The inverters won't last quite as long as the panels. And really what the inverters do is to convert direct current electricity into alternating current, or DC into AC, and it's AC what we need in our houses. So taking that direct electricity produced by the panels has to convert it to AC, and your inverters are are essential in that situation. Your inverters might last maybe 10 years, 7 years. And there's warranties on those, there's warranties on the panels. They're kind of the questions that you would ask. Um, um, have you a good comeback service, in terms of installation and maintenance? The main maintenance for these panels is keeping them cleaned. They need to be cleaned down maybe once a year. Our rain is actually quite good, Catherine, in terms of cleaning those panels, because we get a lot of rainfall, as you know, here in Ireland. So that keeps our panels fairly clean. So there isn't a lot of maintenance with solar panels. It's not like a wind turbine where you have, rotor blades moving all the time. they may need servicing and changing. It's just really cleaning down the panels maybe once a year. And looking at the regulatory requirement I mentioned already about the grid connection, what's the grid capacity in the area? You will have to fill out a form called an NC7 form or an NC6 form, depending on the size of the system. So that's to ensure that you're informing ESB networks that you're producing a system that's connecting back into the grid. It's a legal obligation to do that. You have to look at the planning permission. Now, planning permission isn't an issue now for roof-mounted solar. Since the last 2 years, we've had planning exemption there for roof-mounted solar, unless you're in a solar safeguard zone and that's an area beside an airport. But there wouldn't be too many farms like that. But there is a restriction for ground-mounted solar. All right, you can get maybe a system that would handle up to maybe about 15 kilowatts of ground-mounted solar. So, yeah, they're the main considerations, Catherine. Anyways, there's a lot of things to consider in terms of solar because it is a fairly one-off investment, but a lot of things have improved in the last while in terms of planning permission, easier to get the grid connection through ESB networks, and the planning exemptions there, and also the TAMS grant of 60% is really driving massive interest in this, particularly in the dairy, pig, poultry areas. And of course, as I mentioned at the start there, beef farmers can avail of this as well.
A lot to be considered, really, Barry, when you look at the whole thing overall. You
Yeah.
mentioned at the very start there's a lot of possible diversification options for farmers, and particularly we've seen in the last number of years, agri-tourism is an area that has expanded significantly. From your experience, what has been new or innovative in this area?
Yeah, well, I suppose there's loads of different options that farmers are considering at the moment, and these are the things we'll be discussing in Gertrude on the day as well. Like, it could be food processing, organic, maybe turning agricultural products into value-added items such as jams, maybe cheeses, sauces, chutneys, baked goods. They can significantly increase the profitability by adding the value and not selling the raw ingredient. You have a lot of people doing organic and specialty products. We have a big target for organic farming between now and 2030. There's a big opportunity there for organic farmers to organize themselves and start marketing organic products. In terms of there's a big customer demand for those niche markets there. You mentioned there agri-tourism. Yeah, absolutely. You have farm stays and bed and breakfast, and where you can offer accommodation maybe on the farm that allows the guests to experience rural life and provides a steady income stream for the farmer and the landowner. A lot of people don't want to stay in a hotel. They like the authentic feel of staying on a farm, maybe seeing cows being milked or maybe seeing cattle grazing in a field when they wake up in the morning. So it's that authenticity is very, very valuable nowadays, because anyone can stay in a hotel nowadays, but it's that, I suppose, authentic rural stay is something that they can talk about and take photographs of and share it on their social media with their friends. Farm tours and educational workshops, or where you might maybe host guided tours or school field trips or maybe workshops and of farming practices. That can attract a lot of visitors and generate an income as well. The area of maybe selling direct to consumer sales, whether that's at farmers markets, selling produce, or whether it's meat or dairy or um, you know, online sales is another opportunity as well. Setting up maybe an online store to sell farm products directly to consumers, and I suppose, increase or expand the customer base beyond the local markets. That you're getting into a wider, larger market. You could look at maybe alternative crops and livestock, renewable energy projects, the large solar projects, wind projects, hosting these projects on your farm, maybe setting up a project yourself. Could be a lot of investment involved in that particular one, but there are opportunities there as well. Um, some people are very interested it depends on what they're interested in, Catherine, as well. Some people are interested in, crafts and artisanal products, could be doing workshop maybe on handmade goods. If you have skills in those areas, you could maybe create maybe workshops maybe on handmade items, or maybe selling soaps or candles or pottery or textiles, because in rural areas we have that unique space to do these things. You could be workshops or classes that maybe teaching skills such as crafting or cooking or woodworking, and that can provide additional income stream as well. And there are so many people who have these skills and don't, I suppose, trust themselves to go out there and to teach it to other people. And it's just about giving them the confidence to do that. And I suppose one of the things that we do within Teagasc is the farm business options courses that run in all the regions in the back end of the year. So generally from September onwards, they will be running in the Teagasc offices in association with the local enterprise offices. And the whole idea about those is to enhance the skills and give people the confidence to set up a new business on their farm and to do something different with their assets, that's their land or their buildings, and to maybe to take an idea or a project a stage further. And then you have people doing everything from contract growing, it could be contract rearing. I'm sure you've discussed this loads of times on your program in the past, and it could be farm-based learning, community gardens, urban farming in the country. There's a lot of educational and community programs that can be done through farms as well, social farming. But yeah, that's just kind of a flavour of them.
And following on from the successful event you had in 2023, you mentioned there the Energy and Farm Diversification Show is taking place on Thursday, the 18th of July in Gurteen Agricultural College, County Tipperary. What can listeners expect to see on the day?
Yeah. The show it's quite a big show. The Energy and Farm Diversification Show is now in its eighth year, and it's on the 18th of July in Gurteen. Yeah, and the show really aims to support farmers in, I suppose, exploring and implementing diversification strategies and to enhance their business and their resilience and their profitability. And there's a very strong emphasis on renewable energy, on sustainability, on innovative agricultural practices, and it's a great platform for networking and collaboration. And there's a big area there on exhibitors and demonstrations as well for, people who are selling solar panels, selling heat exchangers, all these technologies, selling yurts and glamping pods and all of these areas. Um, there's an opportunity to actually meet those exhibitors and see what's available. Selling, there's three main areas to the show. One is climate action, the other is energy, and the other area is diversification. So there's a big area covered at it in terms of the exhibitions and the demonstrations. There's over 70 speakers on the day who will be running workshops, seminars. You have a lot of expert speakers. There'll be industry panels, with experts and researchers and from Teagasc and loads of different industries out there. There's practical workshops there and demonstrations on solar where you can ask your questions to a large panel to people like ESB networks if you have challenges of connecting to the grid. You can put your questions to people who are supplying the solar panels themselves, to the Department of Agriculture about the TAMS applications and the do's and don'ts in terms of qualifying for TAMS. There'll be lots of case studies and success stories there, and whether it's real life examples of farmers who have maybe developed a project, setting up a glamping project on their farm, and what were the challenges they had along the way, whether that was with planning or whatever it may have been, or whether it was buying the products, whether it was marketing their product. You'll hear all those kind of case studies and their success stories on the day. A lot of the area of the policy and the market insights will be covered at it as well, Catherine, because policy drives a lot of this, especially in the area of renewable energy. So there's new areas that are coming up now, not just the large scale, fields covered in solar panels or putting up wind turbines, but there's options now for community projects for, up to 6 megawatts that can be supported through the small scale renewable electricity social support scheme, and our SRES as it's abbreviated. And I think this is a new area that will be of interest to farmers who maybe become part of owning a community project and selling electricity back to a utility or to a grid, and they get supported from the government through the SRES that they're guaranteed a minimum market price for their electricity for a period of 15 years. So that gives them a confidence to invest. So I think policy and market insights will be really important at this event. And the whole area of sustainability and climate action and carbon farming, a lot of people are hearing about carbon farming, but don't understand what does it mean for me as a farmer, in terms of a revenue stream in the future. So to understand, the practical guidance, the networking, the collaboration and the policy insights, I think there'll be a lot of information there for farmers on the 18th of July in Gertrude College.
That's great, Barry. A fantastic opportunity for farmers to go and speak with all those people that you mentioned there, particularly if they have an idea or considering setting up a similar business. So we look forward to meeting you there on the 18th of July in Gertrude Agricultural College.
Thank you very much, Catherine.
That's all for this week's episode, and my thanks to Barry for joining me on the show. You can catch up on all other shows and interviews from the Beef Edge podcast on the Teagasc website at teagasc.ie, or you can listen on Apple and Google Podcasts as well as Spotify. Don't forget to rate, review and subscribe so you never miss a show. For all other updates from our beef programme, keep an eye on our Twitter and Facebook pages. Until next time, I'm Catherine Egan and thanks for listening.